Most businesses don't collapse because they couldn't be saved. They collapse because directors wait too long. It's refusing to make a decision when the numbers are really clear. That is where damage starts for you people out there. Now, why do directors delay closing companies? Well, I don't think it's because they're stupid. It's because I think of the psychology around it. And I'm going to dive into that now. I mean, first of all, we've got like hope bias. We're taught to think positively, write affirmations, write gratitude lists. You're probably thinking, well, I've been in this position before. Next quarter's going to be better. We're close to turning it around the corner. And you know what? Hope feels productive. But hope without genuine cash flow projections is fantasy. It's very, very dangerous. Another thing that I think stops people making decisions on company closure is responsibility to staff. And like, listen, I really get it. It's huge, this. A director will say to me, Chris, I don't want to let 20 people down. So what they do is they delay potential insolvency. They use HMRC's money to survive. So that might be they don't pay the next PAYE payment, or they're dipping into the VAT money. They borrow personally. You know, they feel like a knight in shining armour. Gallantly, I'll get some money. Because guess what? You're all getting offered money at the moment. You know, off the same type of lenders where the interest rate's really high, and you're going to be asked to sign a personal guarantee. But you don't want to let your staff go, so you take on 10, 50, 100 grand's worth of debt that's now personally guaranteed. You know, you're signing PGs to just keep going. You might be putting your own personal savings into the business. And ironically, this type of kicking the can down the road can actually make it worse for staff in the long run. I want to talk about identity and ego. Listen, by the way, I'm not talking to you from some ivory tower. I've been where you're at. Like, this is how I set up this business many, many moons ago. I went through an insolvency. I realised that, guess what? There wasn't much advice out there for the director, okay? People don't quite understand this. An insolvency practitioner, who you definitely need to use if you're using an insolvency process. By the way, I'm not one. I work with lots of insolvency practitioners, but my job is director advisory, okay? People don't quite understand that an insolvency practitioner is there to advise the company and not necessarily the director, okay? Now, I remember when I were going through this, like my identity and, you know, it hurt every part of me. It wasn't like just my business. It was years of effort. My reputation, you know, my identity were tied up in my business. I had a lot of pride going on. It felt really personal. You know, it was almost like it's all on my shoulders. This is all my fault. And the reality was it wasn't. You know, I really get where you guys and girls are at the moment, because I've been there. Now, if anything I've said to you so far has sort of hit a nerve, and you want to speak to me or one of my team, if you drop your details, click on that link in the comment section below, put your details in, one of my team will call you today with the #1 rated director advisory firm on Trustpilot by a country mile. We've been doing this years and years. We've helped thousands of business owners. And what we'll do is we'll help you understand what your options are. Now, there are a number of financial warning signs that as a director, you can't ignore this stuff, right? Let's take the emotion out of it. Let's take the... I've got to stop using my hands. I'll let you into a funny story. When I move my hands forward, the focus goes. So my videographer said, you've got to keep your hands on your desk, Chris, okay? It's hard when you're passionate about something. But here are the signs, right, that you cannot ignore, right? And the signs that actually company closure, it's got to be an option on the table. And the first one, I touched on it earlier, you're using VAT as working capital. Like, it happens all the time. VAT is routinely delayed for a business to survive. So your business is no longer self-supporting, it's not self-sustaining. it's using HMRC's money to actually operate. That is not like a small red flag. It's a structural issue that is creeping in. And I get it. I understand why people sometimes do it. Because in the past, HMRC was sometimes a little bit slow to react. You might not pay them for 2 VAT quarters and then they'll start to very nicely, send letters. Like in 2026, that's changed. If you don't make your VAT payment, HMRC are going to be all over you like a rash to get that money in, right? So not paying VAT and using VAT for the business to survive and keep going is a massive red flag, okay? Another one is when you're not paying the PAYE. PAYE is your staff's money, okay? And if you continually repeat delaying paying it, it's another structural issue of this business, right? Now, HMRC will treat businesses that don't pay PAYE very, very seriously, right? If your business can only survive if you use the VAT and don't pay the payroll, you haven't got a business. It's a big problem, right? Another red flag is your director's loan account is growing. It's getting out of control. Now, if your director's loan account is increasing month on month because you've got to draw money out of the company, but the company's struggling, that is creating a future personal liability for you, right? A director's loan account is essentially, it's a ledger of money you've introduced into the company as a director, so that's a credit, and money you've taken out of the company, which is a debit, okay? In most insolvencies, these directors' loan accounts are overdrawn, and it's not because you're a bad person, it's because you've took too much money out of the company without the company being able to afford to pay it, right? So most of yous will take out, I'll use an arbitrary figure here, you're on payroll for 12 grand a year, you take another 3 grand a month that you call as a dividend, right? The problem with that strategy when your business is starting to struggle is a dividend is paid out of distributable profits, okay? What you're actually doing is taking a drawing of 3 grand every month in the hope that a dividend's going to be declared at the end of the tax year and it will get converted into a dividend, right? Now, if you keep paying yourself through what you call as dividends every month, at the end, if you end up in insolvency, every dividend that you've taken since you've been insolvent is going to get reclassified onto an overdrawn loan account, okay? That should scare you, that. Now, just a touch point, what does insolvency mean? Dead simple, can't pay your debts when they fall due. Liabilities are more than your assets, okay? You've got to be careful. Most directors do not understand that an overdrawn director's loan account is an asset in liquidation and it will follow you around, okay? Another red flag, you're signing more personal guarantees, okay? This is a moment, seriously, you've got to stop. Because when directors are signing personal guarantees to just buy time, right, they are converting business debt into personal debt, okay? And again, I'm not adverse to someone signing a personal guarantee. I'm really not. So, in fact, if you want to take on debt in your business, there's a good chance the lender wants a PG. They want some type of security, right? But you've heard about the difference between good debt and bad debt, okay? Good debt is bringing some money in to help your business grow. It might be to recruit. It might be to buy more stock. It might be to fund a new project. But for me, and by the way, in them scenarios, if you're signing a PG with the right financial guidance behind you, you're looking at your cash flows, you're looking at your P&L and you're going, you know what, I can sustain that. That's a good idea, okay? If you are signing personal guarantees to get some money in to pay wages on Friday, I'm not so sure, okay? Signing PGs to borrow money just to survive another month is very dangerous, okay? Another red flag you must be aware of is failing time to pay arrangements. Like directors have got, I think, really complacent with HMRC around this. You can set up a time to pay arrangement. So you pay your arrears for VAT, PAYE, corporation tax over a long period of time, okay? It can be anything from 3 months to 3 years. In some scenarios, you get longer than 3 years. They're very, very few and far between. But this time to pay arrangement is a gift from HMRC. They are saying to you, listen, we're going to give you a bit more time to pay these arrears. But you must keep up to date with your current affairs. Get your returns in on time. And when they go in, you've got to pay them on time. And you also must, without question, continue to make that payment every month against your time to pay. And if you don't, if you fail on any of those issues, you fail to pay a current HMRC bill, or you fail on your time to pay arrangement, it is a huge issue. It's a huge structural issue in your business. And it says to me, the model probably doesn't work anymore. And what HMRC are now going to do, they're going to breach your time to pay arrangement, and they are going to be on your doorstep chasing in that money, okay? And it's highly likely the next thing you're going to hear off HMRC is either a control of goods, where they come round your business with a clipboard, they'll take a note of all the assets, and from that point, HMRC own your assets. If you do not pay all your HMRC arrears in a predetermined time, and we're not talking months and months here, they're going to come and take them away from your business. Now ask yourself the question, can your business operate without the assets? I think you know the answer to that. That's how serious failing the time to pay arrangement is. Other than that, they could just come and wind the business up. Issue a winding up petition. We're seeing it every single day. HMRC are harder. They are out there chasing this money hard because the national debt with HMRC is colossal at the moment. There are more enforcement agents out there knocking on doors. There are more winding up petitions being presented than in any time I can remember, okay? Now, another red flag goes without saying this. You're constantly getting pressured by suppliers because you're not paying them on time. Every month you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're spending the VAT money. You are on cash only. People want cash up front off you. You know, they're passing you over to their insurance. And your suppliers are now losing confidence in you, okay? And remember, if a supplier loses confidence, eventually they'll probably end up issuing a CCJ against you, and eventually they'll also go for a winding up petition. So there are questions, right? If any of those situations apply, there are questions you have got to be asking yourself, all right? And again, these questions, my hope is it removes the emotion from what you're going through, right? Now, first question, if this historic debt disappeared tomorrow, okay, would the business be profitable? And if it is, if the business could be profitable, then potentially restructuring may work, okay? And that could be a CVA where you restructure these debts over 5 years. It could be administration, could be liquidation, okay? Where you pre-pack and start again. But if the answer is no, because like the world has changed these last few years, if the answer is no, you are funding a model that does not function, okay? It doesn't work anymore. And this is a real bitter pill to swallow because a lot of directors will confuse temporary issues. All businesses go through cash flow difficulties at some stage. And they're confusing it with structural unviability. Your business no longer works. If the revenue cannot support your cost base, without you using tax money and borrowing money, the model is broken and no amount of optimism is going to fix this. Now, if you close a company too late, this is where everyone suffers. Directors, HMRC, creditors. Because if you're closing too late, you've got larger HMRC arrears. The chances are your director's loan account has got higher and higher and higher, creating more personal exposure. A lot of directors have signed more and more personal guarantees. Not to mention, remember, when you become insolvent, your responsibilities have changed as a director, and no longer are you there to make money for shareholders. Your director's duties shift, and you can no longer make your creditors' positions any worse. And if you do, there's some pretty serious consequences, okay? The longer that when you become insolvent, there are reasons why you may be insolvent, but the advice is to carry on. And that could be you have a big project starting that's going to be very profitable, you have some money due in, and it's going to come as just a short-term cash flow issue. But the longer that you trade while insolvent, the more personal exposure grows for you, okay? Remember, the minute you can't pay your debts on time, you have got to protect creditors. And if you ignore that shift, the risk grows exponentially. Now, that's what happens if you wait too long. What happens if you close at the right time? And that's a bit of a generalization, apologies, right? Let me tell you when I think the right time is. Okay, you can't pay your debts when they fall due, so you are cash flow insolvent. Your liabilities are more than your assets, you are balance sheet insolvent, right? But here's the question is this limited company in its current guise ever going to get back to profitability in a realistic time scale? And if it isn't, that's when you've got to seriously consider your closure options, okay? And if you do it at the right time, with the right advice, it gives you more control. It can help the pressure stop. It can stop enforcement, can freeze enforcement action. Staff, because this is a big worry, well, I haven't got enough money to pay my staff's redundancy. Well, in an insolvency, in a liquidation or an administration, your staff can claim statutory redundancy pay from the Redundancy Payment Service. They can claim unpaid holidays that have been accrued and not taken. They can even claim notice pay for not being given the correct notice periods. They can even claim unpaid wages. In a closure, your creditors are treated fairly, okay? If you do it early enough, your personal exposure can be limited. Now, for me, a controlled liquidation is radically different from a forced winding up, okay? Like administration, I'm just going to go into those options, right? If your business cannot survive, if it can no longer continue, it's never going to get back on a firm financial footing, liquidation is where it's like a full stop. You appoint an insolvency practitioner, they do an orderly wind down. If there's any assets, they get sold to try and raise money for creditors. They'll investigate you as a director. The assets could be bought back by you. Put my hands ahead of me again. They could be sold to a connected company as long as you pay fair market value for it. Or you might just go, I've had enough, I just want to walk away. And a voluntary liquidation is an option. Administration's slightly different. It's quicker administration. You sort of file a document in court. Your business is in admin. The job of the administrator is to either rescue the business as a going concern. It doesn't happen very often. Or sell the assets of the business to pay a dividend back to either a charge holder or HMRC. And then administration from a PR point of view, I think it's normally better. It looks better administration. It's more seen as more of a rescue option. And I've got to touch on a CVA as well, you know. Sometimes closure isn't the right option for you. Maybe a CVA would rescue the business. And a CVA is a formal insolvency process that you still need an insolvency practitioner, but they supervise the CVA. They don't get appointed. You're still in control. And it's where you agree to pay your debts over a period of time, sort of 2 to 5 years normally. And what happens is you're able to negotiate with your creditors where you pay them a percentage in the pound over that period of time. And it's a big weighty document, a CVA. But for me, it's the financial story of how, if the creditors support you, they will get a better realisation than liquidation, okay? Now, I think it's always helpful to have a decision-making framework around making these decisions. Now, for you, I think you need to ask yourself honestly, you know, if your revenue dropped 10% tomorrow, what would happen? You know, have you got a cash flow model that you can go, right, well, what happens if my revenue drops 20%? Are you surviving by using the VAT? Are you increasing personal exposure just to drag on another month? If you were in my position, would you be advising a director to keep on trading? And is it temporary or is it a broken model? And if these answers are uncomfortable, you need advice. You don't need more hope. And my final message to you is, like, closing a business doesn't define you as a director, but refusing to make a rational decision can, and that can cause you more problems in the long run. The strongest directors are not the ones who cling on the longest, who hock their houses up. They're the ones who act early enough to protect themselves and do right by the creditors. Now, if you're a UK director wondering whether it's time to close your limited company, don't carry that decision alone. Speak to us at Director first. We'll help you assess your viability honestly. We'll identify what personal exposure you've got. We'll explain every single legal option clearly. And guess what? A good insolvency advisor will help you try and avoid insolvency if it's possible. We'll talk through what it's going to look like to restructure or close. Now, I believe there's always a solution, but only if you face reality earlier enough. Now, what I want to do now, there's a video I did of all the things you should be doing before you close a limited company. Because if you've watched this long, either you like funny looking bold chaps with glasses or you've got a big problem. So you can give us a call or you can go and watch this video. Things to do before you close a limited company. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.